Welcome to a special edition of the podcast, everyone. I'm so glad you stopped by to hear all there is about Rosemary and Sage. Turn Back Thyme. Generally, this is a family-friendly podcast that even your grandmother and preacher would approve of. But in today's episode, myself and filmmaker Jared Campbell hype up and talk about his new film, Rosemary and Sage, Turn Back Thyme. And well, Rosemary and Sage is not what we would call a family-friendly film. So in chatting with Jared about the movie, some of the conversation is what I like to call headphone-only listening. So if you're into gory, violent, raunchy horror movies, you're going to love this episode. Take a listen to filmmaker Jared Campbell and myself as we talk about his new film, Rosemary and Sage, Turn Back Thyme. Music by Jay Clean, written exclusively for the film.
Running all night like it was a race, child. Actions being thrown, no, we gotta get down. Time is burning out, and we gotta turn it back. Hey, before it's too late. For the stage, I can hear you coming. Hear you calling my name, I'm running. Told you, baby girl, gotta turn it
Welcome
back.
to You're Still Doing That, where we talk with everybody. Whoa, let me start that again. I've said this a whole bunch of times, and I still mess it up.
It's a lot of W's.
Welcome to You're Still Doing That, where we talk with everyday people about their childhood joys that have endured into adulthood, and tens of people are going to listen. We've got a special edition today. Our friendly neighborhood filmmaker and movie theater manager, Jared Campbell's with us today, talking all about his latest film, Rosemary and Sage, Turn Back Thyme. How's it going, Jared?
It's going great. Could not be better, my friend.
All right, let's talk about your flick.
All right.
All right, Jared. So the new flick comes out this weekend on August 4th. Are you excited?
So excited. I could not be more excited.
If you've seen some of Jared's other works, you're going to notice a growth in Jared as a filmmaker. You can really feel how everything fits together so well. For me, it was those comedic moments. You had these little bits designed to like break in to some bits mixed with, it gets the audience locked in with a mix of laughter and shock, like at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed, I don't know if I got a lot of that in the first flick, but the second flick, you had a whole bunch of those moments in there, whereas a scene would be going on and then boom, there's the little comedic breakup. Was that like intentional for this film?
Yes. When writing the script for this one, we were like, this is super depressing.
Right?
Because like it's a much darker film. It's a much more focused film. It's a lot more serious. There was a lot of things that people had told me in the first film. They were like, this works, but it doesn't work the best because I feel like the first film, and I mean no offense to anyone who worked on it. I mean, my God, it's my baby too. but I don't think it was as focused as this one. Because we had a lot of hands in the pot. We had a lot of people who were like, you should do it this way. You should do it that way. You should basically write this in and write these characters in and give them something to do. And a lot of people wanted to be a part of it because it was a huge cast. We did like 32 cast members in the first one. And I was just a little bit overwhelmed. And I think the film turns out great. I love it. And anyone who's seen it has also loved it as well. But it's truly one of those things where for this one, I listened to the criticism of it being a little unfocused, and I wanted to make it more streamlined.
Yeah, you can definitely tell. It's got a clear focus to it from start to finish. You understand why we're there and what's going on and who the bad person is and what the point of it is. So I really liked it. Now, when Sanford movie goers come, and hopefully beyond Sanford come, is this a flick that's good for kids?
Absolutely not.
All right.
This is probably the most violent film I've made. And St. Patrick's Day was pretty violent. That was the horror film that I made a couple years ago that does tie into this film. And I thought it was pretty gory when I made it, and I was like, oh, that's pretty good. But this one is insanely just out of this world wild. I really do not think anyone under the age of 17 should probably come and watch this.
All right, we want to make sure we get that clear out of the way.
Absolutely.
All right, so what is the story of Rosemary and Sage, Turn Back Thyme? What's the premise of it?
Okay, so the first film, Rosemary and Sage Race Against Time, you got Officer Reva Rosemary and you have FBI agent Samantha Sage. Now, Rosemary's partner and lover Parker Parsley is murdered in the beginning of the first Rosemary and Sage. And the entire film just basically builds upon that, about who did it, why did they do it, what's going on here. And then by the end of it, there's some villains revealed. There's truth revealed. Everything's spiraling. It's crazy. There's a gorilla for some reason. It's awesome. And then...
oh, yeah, the gorilla.
Yeah. You those who know. And so when we were doing the second film, we were thinking to ourselves, okay, so where does the story go from here? I had always wanted to do a sequel to St. Patrick's Day. And I thought to myself, okay, how do I do that? Because we're going to have to top what we did before. And for a couple of years, it was like maybe like 2 years, like even up to like the point of when we started production on Back Thyme, I was like, I don't know where this can go. But I have half a completed story here for a Rosemary and Sage sequel, and I have half of a story for St. Patrick's Day. I'm just going to put the two together and do a crossover. Yeah. And when I had mentioned crossover, everyone like flipped their shit. They were like, this is awesome. We need to do this for the sequel. And I'm like, okay, so here's what we're going to do. I decided to, right before we finished production of the first film, I did an after credit scene where it sets up Samantha, after everything's all said and done, Samantha Sage is like called him by the mayor, and he's like, I want to win the re-election, and I think that by solving an old murder, I might be able to do that. Do you think you can help me with it? And of course, it is the St. Patrick's Day murders from 1984. So you got a 40-year gap in between St. Patrick's Day to Rosemary and Sage. And I thought to myself, and this is even more brilliant because the actress who played in St. Patrick's Day, the survivor, or the killer rather, I wanted her to reprise her role, and everyone was like, well, isn't it going to be weird that she was also Parker Parsley? Are people going to be confused about that? And I'm like, I think I can come up with an idea, because if it's 40 years later, then we can just age her up with makeup. And I think that if we do this correctly, and if we make it clear that these are different characters, then everyone's going to be along for the ride. Yeah,
so I'll tell you right now, I didn't even know it was the same actress.
Yep.
I didn't pick up on it.
I see. I love it. I love it.
I didn't even pick up on it.
So Turn Back Time's story, basically, Reba Rosemary and Samantha Sage, they team up once again, and they are going to solve the murders from St. Patrick's Day that went unsolved at the end of the film. Like, the film ends kind of like on a ambiguous note. And Turn Back Time basically fills in the pieces and delivers a complete story for it.
I love it. The cast members you have in all your flicks, were they eager to go for another round 2 for Rosemary and Sage?
You know, that's the best part about that, is that I have a group of people who I'm always going to work with, and that's usually, like, you can see that because every movie has the same cast members in it. And I set the main cast down, and I'm like, all right, look, I have some ideas for our next project. I don't know what we want to do, but I'm going to put 2 scripts down, and y'all can pick which one you want to do next. I put one down for a horror film, and I put a Rosemary and Sage sequel down, a potential one, because I know they really had fun with it. Without hesitation, everyone pointed to the Rosemary and Sage script. And I'm like, really? They were like, we had way too much fun with this one. You can see on screen that we're having fun, that the audience was having fun. I think we could do it even better the second time. Why don't we do this? And then we can go on to the next big thing. I was like, all right, so Rosemary and Sage 2. And I was a little disappointed that they picked it, because I wanted to do the horror film, but then, I just saw everyone's enthusiasm, and they were so excited, and I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to just take all this negativity about, I don't think I want to do this, and make it the best movie that I could possibly make, because I don't want to put their names on something that I wouldn't be proud of and that they wouldn't be proud of.
Right. Now, Turn Back Time has a new character in it. His name is Alan.
Yeah.
How did the idea of having Alan come about?
Well, I thought about St. Patrick's Day and how it takes place in the 80s. And I'm like, okay, so even though this film takes place in current day, if it's a sequel to St. Patrick's Day, we still need to have that 80s feel to it. And most 80s films, all the bad ones anyway, had a stupid robot character that nobody cares about, like Rocky IV or Space Camp. Yeah. And I'm like, I want a robot character. And my wife looks at me with the most pissed off look. She's like, do not put a robot character in this movie. Okay, we don't need a robot character. And I pulled out my phone because I already had one in mind. Yeah. And I showed her the toy, and she was like, okay, you need a robot character. His name's Alan. And I'm like, it automatically comes up with a name. And I'm like, okay, all right, cool. So Alan it is. I don't know. I just wanted, because I thought to myself one thing too. I was like, yes, we need a robot character, not just for like comedic reasons and for nostalgic 80s movie reasons, but also for marketing reasons.
Right.
Because it's like, dude, this is a cute, lovable character that you can plaster on anything.
Yep.
And then you'll immediately be like, okay, great. So and they're even on he's even on the collector cups. Like he's got to be there.
Yeah. So yeah, Alan was really great. How did you go about designing what his voice was going to sound like?
Originally we didn't know what we wanted to do for Alan, and my friend John Felix, he absolutely begged for that role. John Felix played Cecil Cumin in the first film, and he's been a part of my movie since day one. He was the villain in the first 3 movies I made, which was the Omar trilogy. He actually filled in to be the St. Patrick's Day Killer as a stand-in St. Patrick's Day for a little bit, and we didn't work together for like a couple years because of conflicting schedules. But then when Rosemary and Sage was coming out, he was like, I really want to be a part of this one. This is gonna be next level. And it was truly an experience. And then after, spoiler alert, he's not, he gets killed off in the first one. I was like, well, John, you can't come back because you're dead. And he was like, well, I want to voice Alan. And I was like, okay, well, how do you want to go about it? And he was like, I'll see what you like. And we went through a couple different voices during the recording session, and we landed on the one that he picked. And I'm like, it's gonna have a filter on him once we're done, but I can sense, it was like, speaking of Power Rangers, like I can sense you have an Alpha 5 reference going on here. And he was like, okay, so you want Alpha 5? And I was like, I want Alpha 5 mixed with Mr. B from Clone High. If you've ever seen Clone High, it was a very short-lived show, but it we just took these 2 elements together. It took 2 hours to record the dialogue for it, and we were done. I don't know. I just we wanted a new marketable, fun character.
Yeah, he's definitely. I like the idea of Alan, the camera robot. That's pretty neat. So this one has a bit more blood in it than the first Rosemary and Sage, as every good sequel should.
Of course,
have more blood and gore. How do you like working with all the extra blood and gore?
Oh, I absolutely hate it. I love it, but I hate it all at once. Blood is a mess, and it's always it gets everywhere. It doesn't stain clothes, though. Surprisingly, it does not stain. You can throw all your bloody clothes in there, and it will come right out.
Now, do you buy your blood, or do you make it?
We buy it. I usually go to Florida Imports here. They have, because I'm like, I can order it from Amazon. But Amazon's finicky with fake blood. For some reason, you can get a lot of fake blood on Amazon, but it doesn't have the 2-day shipping. Yeah. And I'm paycheck to paycheck, so I'm literally like, well, I can't afford this like on that day for it to be here now. Like that's why the 2-day shipping would be convenient, even though Amazon sucks. But Florida Imports always has blood in stock.
Yeah, we bought some there too once before.
And the craziest part about it was for the first time ever, it was the day that we needed all this fake blood. And my wife, she's like, I'll go pick some up for you while you're working. I'm like, oh, that's great. Thank you so much. And she goes to pick it up. And she's like, I need some fake blood. And the first time I was like, oh, we don't have any because it's Easter. and
we're like, everybody needed the blood of Christ everywhere.
Like, I thought to myself, is that a thing? She was like, Jessica, my wife, she was like, yeah, they were saying they were doing reenactments. And I'm like, oh, that's a little dark. But okay, all right.
It's like I just got an idea for my next film.
I was like, okay,
there you go. You should do a horror movie based around a reenactment of the Passion of Christ, but in a small town church.
Oh no! It was wild, but we wound up going to Party City for it, and it sucked because the blood that we got this time, like we got 6 liters. But this was the first time the blood was a little syrupy. Yeah. Like, I've never had blood that syrupy, but it looked great. It was the reddest blood.
No, I was going to say it was pretty bright.
Yeah. But I liked that.
I specifically remember the blood on the urinal. I was like, oh, that's bright.
Mm-hmm. That's also due to color correction, too. We were like, I gave it that nice, bright, vivid color because St. Patrick's Day was intended to be a giallo. And giallo is basically a subgenre of Italian horror films. and that was a complete love letter to Italian horror film. So of course with the sequel, I'm like, well, what's in a giallo? It's gotta have a killer with gloves, but the gloves usually have zippers. It's gotta have an extreme amount of violence for no reason, but the blood always has to be really, really bright and almost like neon like.
Yeah.
And I thought that we nailed it to an extent for sure. And also there's always a straight razor involved. I don't know what it is, but there's always a straight razor. In St. Patrick's Day, we use the straight razor. We didn't get to use the straight razor in Turn Back Time, but I did have it in the opening credit sequence, of course.
Oh yeah, yeah, you sure did, didn't you? I was trying to think back to it. I'll have to rewatch that thing again.
I would hope that you liked it enough to do it.
I was like, I always need a couple rewatches. So now, when you're working with blood, how hard is it to do a retake?
Man, I'll tell you, poor Jill and SJ on the set of that, because we had these like takes where they would just have to get doused, and I looked at everyone. I was like, all right, so this blood's gonna have to come out in a certain way. So we had to lay the whole pint of blood in a hand and smash it, and it just kept going. So we wasted about 2 or 3 pints of blood while we were doing it, because I was like, the camera wasn't in focus. Oh, that wasn't good enough. And they're like, what the hell? They're sopping wet. And it was also cold too. The blood was so cold for some reason. It was very hot outside when we were doing it, so that was great. But like, why was it freezing cold? You know,
right?
But it presents a challenge of like comfort. I know literally they were like, yeah, my shower is stained red after today, and I got like the pictures at the bottom, and I was like, damn, that's crazy. That is crazy. It's always fun, but it's a mess.
I was just thinking that too. Like, if you sprayed on the wall or something for a shot, and you were like, no, we need to do this again, I'm like, you got to clean it all up, and then you got to try again somewhere.
The soon to be infamous bathroom scene did take 2 takes.
Yeah.
And because not spoiling anything, it bounced out of the urinal, and we were like, okay, we need to do that again.
Nice.
And we had to take a mop and like mop everything up and make it pristine like it never happened. And then we did it a second time. And like in the original footage, because of course I dubbed it out, but like we're over there, like you can just hear us so hard trying not to laugh,
right?
Because it was so funny, because it did a flip and it landed right into the center, and we're like, and like we couldn't laugh, and then when we cut, we lost it. We just absolutely lost it.
Oh my goodness. I've got some after podcast questions on that too.
Oh yeah. Oh god.
So with Turn Back Time, you get the opportunity to work with the artists Jay Clean and Name to come up with a song for the film.
Mm-hmm.
So how did the opportunity to work with them come about?
So James, I've known for several years. I think almost a decade. He's been working here for quite some time, and I know that he's an aspiring artist. Or you know what, let me just go ahead and say he is an artist. He's got albums. I know that he's extremely immensely talented. My wife listens to him too, like on the regular, like has a playlist just with his music. And he's damn good. And he comes up to me during Rosemary and Sage, the first one, and he's like, how would you like it if I made a song for the movie? And I'm like, an original song? I've never done that before. Let's do it. I'm hyped. Yeah, let's go for it. And a couple months go by, and I don't hear anything because I don't rush artists, especially when it comes to like James, or when it comes to the person who does our posters. Like, it could take months. It could even take like half a year to make something work, and I never rush them. I'm like, you take the time you need, because time is important to make it right. And about a couple months pass, and James comes in to the studio where we're at now, and he was like, can you come in here for a minute? I was like, sure. And he sets me down, and he puts his phone down, and he plays the song, and I lost it. I was like, that is the coolest song. That's gonna be a hit. And it was a huge hit. It was like everyone was downloading it and saving it. I had messages after the movie. They were like, where can I get that song at? And I'm like, it's a banger, right? It's real good. And when the sequel was coming out, I looked at him and I said, Jane, we're going to need another hit song when the sequel comes out. He was like, I got you. And James is like, he comes to me like a week before the movie comes out, and he's got the song finished, and I'm like, dude, I'm so excited to hear it. And he's like, and I'm like, what's wrong? He was like, I don't know. I just feel like I could have done better. And I'm like, James, I'm sure it's great. And everyone in that theater was jamming.
No, it was good.
Everyone in that theater was jamming. I'm like, come on, man, you got to believe in yourself. It was so good. It's different than the upbeat, song in the first one. And I told him, I was like, I wanted something a little bit different this time around, just because we need to differentiate the sequels with each other. And he was on board, and he's a class act, one of the nicest, sweetest people in the world. And his music video played during the premiere too, and it was phenomenal, of course.
Well, Jared, I had the pleasure of attending your premiere screening for Rosemary and Sage, Turn Back Time, and I can tell you that your staff loves you and your films. By the sheer amount of people that were in the theater, and when you came in to announce the film and everybody's reaction, I can tell how much you and your work are loved and appreciated.
Yeah.
So a round of applause to you.
Thank you.
And to what you do, because I can tell that your group of folks you've got working with you and for you, they absolutely love what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that says a lot about what you're doing here and what you're doing on your flicks.
Absolutely. I have the people I didn't even know in there, and I was like, who are these people? And it's great because they loved it too. And it's nice that it can branch out and find its audience. I think that's such an important thing, is for your film to find an audience, and everyone in that audience was there for it and loved it. And I could not be more grateful.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the point in the podcast where we might get into a few spoilers. So if you don't want to know any details about the flick before you come and see it, because I know you're going to come and see it. So now I'm going to be the time to say see you later and have a good week. So there's your warning. All right, Jared, so when did you start production, and how long was the shoot for this thing?
January 1st was the first day of filming. We had a meeting
Of
this year.
Of this year,
yeah.
Okay.
We had a meeting so for the last few years, I'd hold a meeting in November, and I do a little photo shoot. So I do a meeting and a photo shoot same day. That way we can read through the script, and we can talk about what we want, what kind of changes we need, and what works best for the film. And as that's happening, we're also taking photos for promotional stuff, like for posters, for merchandise, anything that I can think of. We just do little photo shoots for the promotional stuff, and also to do casting reveals, because there's a thing I do on Instagram. Every time we make a film, I'll count down the cast. It'll be like every day we'll post a cast picture of who's going to be in the cast, and this always brings a lot of excitement. I remember when a lot of people had a lot of attachments to the characters in the first film, so when they were reprising their role and it was like, hey, they're back, everyone's like, yeah, we're so excited. So it's a nice little thing that we do. And after a couple months of looking at the script, making sure it was right, we started shooting on January 1st of this year, 2023. And this lasted until June 28th.
Yeah.
I do believe is when the last day of filming was. It takes a while. You got people who were in college.
I was about to say, you've got a full-time job. Other people have jobs. They have school. And you got to work around everybody's schedule, since no one's getting paid to make these things.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I always feel bad about that. I'm like, guys, like, I just feel bad having you guys come all the way out here and get drenched in blood. And everyone's always assures me, they're just like, Jared, we just love to do it. We don't care. We just love doing it because it's fun. And then at the end of the year or halfway through the year, whenever you're done with it, we all get to come together and watch it. That's payment enough. And I'm like, I don't know. I think that we need to start getting paid for this, because I see you over there drenched in blood. I don't even want to say what happened to Jackson.
Right.
And we're just like, God, we need to do something. But yeah, no, everyone's just so happy to be part of things.
Yeah. So I take it you edit along the way, as you shoot.
I absolutely do. That way I can get it out faster, and also it keeps my brain in check. I've always got to be doing a project, or else I just lose my sanity, and like I can't go forever without writing or doing something.
I know how that goes. Yeah. When I do my flicks for school, I'll usually edit a segment, and then I polish it all the way to completion. And then try to match them all together. I also found my little laptop can't I forget the term. It can't create the video, like if everything's from scratch. If I've got, like 90 layers of things going on, and if I try to create an hour-long flip of all just raw uncut material, it's going to crash.
Yeah.
So I have to edit it like in 10-minute chunks.
Yeah, same.
And then finish it so it can render it down to one line of video.
Yep.
and then put them together.
I can't believe that someone else is suffering the same issue I am.
I have to do the same thing.
Oh
I learned
my
that.
God! Oh, you understand?
No, I learned the same thing. The first time I tried to do anything of length for school, my computer kept crashing. Like I had it all finished, but I've got all kinds of different layers of video on top of video and pictures and sound and whatever. And then it keeps crashing.
Yep.
And so then I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to do this in chunks and start all over. So now when I put something together for school, I think of it in segments and scenes. I was like, all right, I got to finish the scene, render it all down to one line of video, and then put them together that way.
Yep.
So I've got all these little directories. I've got, here's this scene, and here's that scene, and here's that scene.
Yes, and it's all you had to do. Yep. It's like in layers. I had to get to the point where I started numbering. I'm like, okay, so in sequence, this is how the movie should go.
Yeah, that would make sense. You would need them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I don't do things much longer than 15 minutes of school. But if I did an hour length thing, you'd have to just number 1, 2, 3, 4.
It would destroy it. And it's like, and then of course, even and it's like the program knows too. It's like once you hit that 10-minute mark in the timeline, it's like, oh, it's starting to slow down, and then you'll open up one and it'll be completely fine if it's blank.
Yeah.
All the way up to like a certain time. Like it's getting to the point where it's only in 5-minute increments for some scenes for me.
Yeah.
It's sucks.
Yeah, it just depends on how many. Yeah. Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I know exactly how you feel.
God, someone who knows.
Okay, you already told me it's 6 liters of blood. That doesn't seem like too much. It seems like it was fairly, like not too terribly bad that you guys were, and all it costs money too, so you can't throw it around.
Oh man,
like crazy.
This movie had such a cheap budget, thankfully.
Now, Jackson's member. Did you now? My first guess was did you buy it, or did someone in the cast have it for you?
Okay, this is going to be one hell of a story. One hell of a story. So when the first film came out, there was a review that they gave it a 1-star review, and it said that it was one of the worst films in their 8 years of living. That everything was awful and the plot was going.
So they were 8 years old and they came and saw the movie.
What?
Why are you letting an 8-year-old come and see this
That's what
flick?
I'm saying. And then he was like, the plot was going nowhere. The editing was terrible, and I take offense to that. Come on now, the editing ain't that damn bad. And and he was like, and he said, and here's what made me die from laughter. He said, and worst part of all, no shaft. And I'm like, okay. And remember what I said? I was like, I'm gonna take whatever criticism I hear. I'm gonna take it.
Right.
And I thought to myself, he wants shaft. He's going to get some.
He's gonna gift one.
He's gonna get one. So like, I thought to myself, and I'm like one day I'm just chilling at work, and an employee's brother comes in, and they're like, "You're not gonna believe what I found in the woods."
Yeah.
And he pulls out this,
huge dildo. Yeah.
And it's massive. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Why did you touch it? Why is it here?
Right.
Why did you bring it? No one saw you bring that in, right? Because it was huge. And he was like, no, it's all good. And someone cut the bottom off of it. And I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, no shaft. And then and Jackson knew that he was going to. Jackson plays Deputy Anise in the film. He is a very positive, outgoing character, and I added him in there for comedic relief as well because the whole movie is just without him. I feel like it would be infinitely more depressing. So I'm like, okay, I need a little bit of levity in here. And once I saw the dildo, and once Jackson walked up and started laughing at it, I'm just like, well, you're going to get axed off in the film because you're the most positive character, and I think people would be upset when you die. And he was like, true. I was like, do you want your dick cut off? Yeah. And he laughed so hard. He was like, so are we going to explain why it's so big? And I'm like, if anyone asks in interviews, just say that you got stung by a bee or something.
Right.
And so we just, I filmed the scene. And it was hilarious, and we had a great time doing it. And I got the footage together, and I showed it to all the producers. I showed it to my wife, everyone who was like behind the scenes, and they're like, you can't put that in there. You're going to have to cut that because no one's going to allow that online and someone's going to walk out. And I'm like, I'm counting on it.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you, they said no Shaft. They're going to get Shaft. And on top of that, I really think that if we want to make a film that stands out, that it should definitely have it should have something extremely memorable. Not saying the rest of the film isn't memorable, but that's one scene that this audience will never forget.
I remember laughing. It's seeing that dildo go in the urinal, and it's so big it doesn't even go into the urinal.
It just sticks in the hole.
It doesn't even go. It's so big.
We were like, and I record audience reactions too. Anytime there's a screening, I'll record.
Oh, you could hear it. I knew you were waiting for that moment because the whole audience went, "Oh!"
They did, and it was like, there was so much laughter, and I'm like, "Yes, we nailed it! We nailed it! Now who's gonna walk out?" And nobody walked out. I'm like, "All right."
Not in that group of people. No one's gonna walk out there.
No, that was the best group.
That was your bread and butter.
Watched it with.
I almost shouted out, "Oh no, Jackson, your penis!"
You should have. He was waiting for it. Like we had so much fun shooting that scene, and I know it was risky, and I know it's still going to be risky to keep it in there.
Now, I don't think it's risky. I mean, the film, you give it the rating it gets, and you need, in a horror movie, you need that shock value. Mm-hmm. You know, you need, somebody has got to die, and it's got to be really bad.
Exactly.
I don't think, it's not shocking at all. I mean, look, I'm watching It with the family, and I hate horror movies. Mm-hmm. And they're making me watch It, the first one. And it's so much blood all the time. The movie, yeah. There's just oceans of it in this thing. Mm-hmm. And it's awful. But everything in that is way worse than seeing a plastic dildo go in a urinal. Right?
It's funny, too, because I was sitting there thinking the whole time, I'm like, in the first film, you got a very shocking neck break. You've got people overdosing. You got a throat getting ripped out, and I'm like, how do we top this? And I think this is what's going to top that. And it's the goriest scene in the film for sure.
Yeah, but no, it's only like it's only on screen for like a second or two, and and then it cuts right away. So
yeah,
we all thought it was great.
Hell
I know
yeah.
My girls were with me. They're 18, and they went, "Oh!" And I was like, "It's perfect for that age group. Everybody understands it. Everybody gets it.
Of course, you gotta market to the masses.
Anybody that doesn't like it, it's going to be the people that wouldn't like the film in the first place.
Exactly.
No matter what it is, anyway. I do think you missed a comedic moment. Speaking of Jackson and his member, at the wedding scene at the end, if you had Jackson there with a really big cast right there in between his legs,
we were
standing there, I was like, that would have been awesome.
We were actually going to have him during the hallway scene, which I call the Rogue One ripoff. They're in the hallway sequence where the Shamrock Slasher just goes to town on all the inmates and the police officers in the hall. Jackson was supposed to actually come out with his hand on his crotch covered in blood and just firing off rounds, like screaming at the top of his lungs.
That would have been good.
But I was like, but here's the issue though, is that I couldn't, because Jackson was actually playing the killer in that scene.
Oh,
I needed
he was dressed up.
Yep, I usually do stand-ins for the killer if the actress playing, like the central actress for who that character is, couldn't make it to make the shoots because she's busy a lot and she does her own thing. And I'm like, hey, no worries, because that's the beauty about having like a mass killer. It can be anybody.
Yeah. So how many different people did you have playing the killer throughout the
movie? Just Jackson and my friend Haley were the killers in this film.
I wondered how many different people were on, like whoever was available that day.
Mm-hmm. Anytime when it takes place in the woods or during the forest, that's all Haley, and anything outside of that was always Jackson.
The scene in the video store where they go to look at the evidence tape, was that scripted or was that just people just spouting out?
So that is a huge reference to the first 3 films in the series, and that's the Omar trilogy.
Right. I had a feeling.
Yep. And I was like, if we're doing a crossover, we got to cross over everything. Yep. And I've always wanted to do a 4th Omar movie. And for those listening, Omar is a trilogy of films that I made. It was in 2015 to 2019. It was the first 3 films in our filmography. And since we crossed everything over, I guess you could say the first films in this long-running series. And the plot is usually the same in all. The first movie is a guy named Omar, and he runs an adult video store, and they come in contact with this possessed VHS, and this villain is trying to like get it back, and in this chaos, the villain murders one of the store's most valued employees. And Omar's like, well, we got to take this guy down. We got to figure out what this tape is. So he teams up with his employees to take down the villain. And that's the first movie you will ever see, and probably the only movie you see where someone is killed with a dildo.
Yeah.
And in the second one, it's revealed that the person they murdered was the lover of one of the employees, and she's all upset and she wants to get him back. And because that we've established that demons and ghosts exist, she tries to basically go to the spirit world to bring her lover back from the dead, and in return she gets pregnant. And then in the third film, the villains are like, well, you killed us twice and we keep getting resurrected all the time, so we're going to basically take your unborn child. And that's the story of the third one. And at the very end of it, Omar moves into a bigger, better porn store, which is, and the continuity matches up.
There you go.
We use the same building that we did at the end of it. And so for the Omar scene, and just like every Omar film, they were in fact ad-libbed. I have a central idea of how I want the scene to go, and I'll tell them this is how I want the scene to go. So if you can just get to that point, that would be great. But in terms of whatever you want to say and do, go crazy.
Yeah.
In the first one, there was a loud breakout argument, just like you see in this one, and I was like, I was just paying reference to the first film. So I guess if you see them, you know. If not, then you'll probably be a little bit confused, but you'll have a fun time seeing, like, laughing at everyone just yelling at each other and screaming at the top of their lungs.
Yeah.
I think it worked in context of the film because we definitely needed it. Because in the Omar trilogy, it is all about, we sell players and VHS and beta. And I was like, well, how are they going to play this tape? And they're like, why don't you just send Rosemary to Omar? And I'm like, that's brilliant.
Yep. Now, at the end of the flick, you've got the mayor doing this nice little dance right there.
Oh my god!
At his car. How did that come to be? The mayor's striptease at his car.
So we thought long and hard about what we wanted to do for an after credit scene, because I told everyone, I was like, look, I don't know if I want to put an after credit scene, because I don't know if I want to do a third Rosemary and Sage, because I think we've taken this as far as we can go, but I know how attached we get to characters, and of course, it's no secret. If every screening is like the one that we attended the other night, then I will definitely be doing another one. And I did want to set it up to get the fans and the audience guessing, like, oh shit, are they going to do another one? Is that something we can look forward to? So yeah, you can look forward to it. Might as well just go ahead and say it here. But I was trying to figure out how we're going to be able to set up a stinger, because the last film had a stinger setting up a St. Patrick's Day crossover, and I'm like, well, where can we go from here? And I always did say that at the end of the first one, I said if we ever do another one, then we would have to bring a character back. So we brought a character back, not from the dead, because they didn't die, to basically be a much bigger and larger threat in the third film for these characters. And in order to make that happen, I was like, well, I think the mayor has to be in on it. And Ben comes to me. Ben plays the mayor. I love him so much. I've been friends with Ben for 23 years. He runs up to me. He said, I have a great idea. I'm like, what? He was like, the mayor is so against all of these things. What if he was basically forced into being one of those things? I'm like, what do you mean? He was like, well, what if, like, because he lost the election and he has nothing left, that he wants to take out revenge, right? But how is he going to get that money to pay off someone to, like, do an assassination hit? And I'm like, I'd be a stripper. He was like, exactly.
To sell my body.
And I'm like, so you're telling me that you want to stand out here in the parking lot while we're open so cars can drive by, and you're going to be in full on, like, you're going to have fishnets and makeup? And he was like, yeah. and he looks at me like dead in the face. He's like, can you imagine how that audience is going to react when they see the mayor at an all-time low?
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? I can't argue with that. And it got the biggest reaction out of the entire, because it's unexpected.
No, that's right. It was pretty shocking.
Yeah, he loved it. And we were all just laughing. It was funny too, because he's like, Pete, because he got dressed to here in the studio, and he's like looking outside. He's like, fuck, I don't want anyone to see me. Like, because I have a reputation. I was like, shut up, go out there. And like, there was no one there. And sure enough, like, movie started letting out as he was coming out. He's like, oh God, oh God, oh God. He said he ran, and the shoes didn't fit. So they're just, it was a trip. It was an absolute trip. Oh man, what a time.
Yeah, I was definitely wondering about how that process, and then shooting, like how much of that did not make the film.
All of it, everything we shot made it in.
Yeah,
because I was like, I gotta, and I know some, because he was like, you think it lingers on a little bit too long for some things? I'm like, yes, but I'm trying to hit that runtime quota. I was like, because now we're at the end credits and we can kind of do whatever we want to, but. Yeah, that's pretty much how that went down.
Right. So make sure you stay to the end, folks, so you can, there is a little special surprise there.
Oh, it's quite a surprise.
After the end. Well, Jared, thanks for talking about your new film.
Of course.
And so besides another Rosemary and Sage storyline, what else do you think you want to make at some point?
Well, the next film, we're making a film next year. I make one film a year. And next year, we're going to focus our efforts on scaring the hell out of people. I really want to make a horror film that will sink into your mind and you'll never forget it. And I can say, well, I've announced what the title is. The new film that we're making, and it will be the 8th entry in the Spring Lane Studios saga. Nice. I guess is called Migraine, and it will be an Italian style slasher, a giallo, if you will. It follows the story of a woman who is suffering from frequent headaches. She's a painter. She's an artist. She's having bad dreams and hallucinations. And it's not cancer. It's not mold in the new house she's moved into. No one knows what it is. And you're not going to know here because it's going to be a hell of a twist, and it's great. But we're really looking forward to it. It'll be different. For once, we're not going to be filming in Sanford. I've always wanted a beach setting. I feel like the beach could be kind of a scary setting if you really do it right. I know that it'll probably be out sometime for Halloween next year. We want to do like a big Halloween blowout and really have the scariest possible movie you could watch. It won't have any jump scares. It will be very A24 like films like Hereditary or Midsummer, where they're very slow burners and you just get this uncomfortable imagery in your mind. It's going to be very, very special. It'll be very different. I don't think anyone's prepared for the horrific imagery that we're about to bestow upon this world.
Well, I mean, that's what visionaries do, right? Mm-hmm. To get your stuff out there.
That's what it was. We talked about it on the podcast last time. It was my favorite horror movie and favorite icon of all time was Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
And when I was 15, I wrote this script as an Elm Street movie, like a movie I always wanted to see. I was like, it's interesting because most Elm Street movies focus on a group of kids. What if we just focused on one? That way we could flesh out this character in an incredible way. And of course, since I'm never going to say never, but because it's not in the cards now, I'm taking the script and I'm going to make the Elm Street movie I pretty much always wanted to make.
Right.
And that's what you can expect with Migraine.
And that's the horror movie that made me hate horror movies. Because I saw it when I was a kid, which I should have never watched it as a child. But I don't know whose house it got put in.
Effect on me.
But on me, it was like, oh no. Right? I didn't even dare sing the song. The Freddy Krueger. So this one might be. Maybe this will heal my scar of horror movies.
No, it'll make it worse.
All right, Jared. So remember, folks, come out August 4th, Rosemary and Sage, Turn Back Time. We'll be live here at Spring Lane Cinemas in Majestic, Sanford, North Carolina. And come get a ticket, get some drinks, and get some popcorn. So make sure you come on out, support your local theater, and help keep it here. The days of independent theaters are disappearing. So come and see a movie, get some popcorn, get a drink. The movie theater is one of the great American art forms, and we need to make sure that we do our part to keep our theater moving and trucking along here in Sanford, North Carolina. So, Jared, thanks for coming on the podcast. We appreciate it every time. I'm sure we'll do this again in the future. So everyone else, see you at the movies and have a good week.
Running burning all night like it was a race, child. Actions being thrown, no, we gotta get down. Time is burning out, and we gotta turn it back, hey, before it's too late. For the sake